Entering the locker corridor before the shift, I noticed George Miller between the lockers and two laundry workers. Their voices were low as they exchanged small wrapped items. Miller's usual levity was absent, replaced by a tense calculation, as he slipped something into his locker just as the overhead lights hummed brighter. "Hey Miller, good day of work to you." He flinched at my voice, snapping the locker shut with more force than necessary. The laundry workers moved past us, disappearing down the corridor. Miller adjusted his uniform, smoothed his expression, and offered a thin smile. "Morning," he said, stepping away. He turned toward the verification sector, posture stiff, while I continued to the regulators, the factory hum swallowing whatever transaction had just occurred. The whistle signaled the interval. Miller was already seated when I arrived, posture rigid, eyes fixed on his tray, as though the arrangement of identical portions required full concentration. "Miller," I said quietly, leaning forward just enough. "Can you tell me about the man I saw with you this morning? What are you planning?" He did not look up immediately. "It is just business," he replied at last. Tone flat. "Don't worry. I am supposed to be your friend, but you can't trust me." His jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he would dismiss me entirely. Instead, he lowered his voice further. "I don't want to get you involved." A pause, then, almost reluctantly. "But if you insist, I can show you something interesting after the working day. Meet me at the main gate." He resumed eating. The machinery of lunchtime maintained its indifferent rhythm around us. The whistle returned. Workers rose, and the brief pause folded neatly back into the assembly floor's disciplined current. Miller did not look at me again. The remainder of the shift extended with unusual weight. My hands performed their duties, but my attention drifted toward the end of the day. When the final whistle released us, Miller waited, beyond the scanners, posture restless, eyes scanning the departing lines. He gave only a brief, deliberate gesture, two fingers lowered at his side, subtle enough to escape notice, clear enough for me to understand. I followed him through a narrow service alley pressed between auxiliary walls and storage conduits, until we reached a recessed section beyond the main production block. Still within the perimeter, fencing. The air felt different there. No mechanical hum, no drone propellers, no mounted optics blinking from the corners. Miller crouched beside a concealed maintenance shaft half-veiled by stacked pallets and lifted its metal hatch with practiced ease. He looked at me only once before motioning downward. Fear tightened in my chest, but I obeyed. The tunnel below was wider than expected, reinforced with aging steel ribs and cables, running like exposed veins along the curved ceiling. Our footsteps echoed as we advanced beneath the outer walls, dividing one secured sector from another. The weight of the structure above was almost tangible. My pulse grew louder with each turn. Left, then right, then deeper still. Certain that discovery would mean more than dismissal. "Don't worry," he murmured. "We're almost there." The tunnel ended in a narrow stairwell. When we emerged, the light was softer. Warm lamps instead of fluorescence. The ceiling higher, the air carrying sound differently. People moved through wide corridors without the clipped cadence of the factory. Then we stepped outside, and I stopped walking. An entire city stretched ahead. One I had never known existed. The avenue was broad and sterile, paved in smooth concrete, lined with rectangular buildings glowing in neon. Storefronts sold curiosities behind bright panels of glass. Bars exhaled faint clouds of artificial smoke. Cafes offered tables under grids of light. Performance halls with glossy facades promised music. The air carried a synthetic musical undertone, slow and deliberate, woven into the hum of the street and the echo of footsteps, giving the whole avenue a life I couldn't account for. Miller led me down a narrower alley. Between two trash containers, a small rusted metal door appeared. He produced not a badge but a key, slid it into the lock, and the door opened with a muted click. Inside, the hideout was everything the street above was not. Shelves and metal stands crammed every corner, stacked with electrical components, hand tools, and coils of wire. Crates of glass bottles, filled with liquids of varying colors, rattled softly when the floor shuddered. Pipes ran along the ceiling connecting devices whose purpose I could only guess at. A single exposed bulb swung slightly. Overhead, the air smelled of oil and chemical fumes, sharp and persistent, chaotic, improvised, entirely functional. He moved quickly, tossing me a stack of plain, unmarked clothes. Change. The fabric was soft, nothing like our uniforms. I traded my badge, stamped shirt and jacket for them, swapped my boots for them, nondescript shoes from a box under a shelf. When I turned, he held out a handful of small circular objects. Flat, smooth, the size of poker chips. "What are these?" "Money," he said, eyes scanning the corners of the shack. "You don't want the system tracing your activities." I turned them over in my hand. They had a precise weight to them, which was the only familiar thing. We emerged back into the neon and moved toward the entertainment district. People here carried themselves differently. Loose, unhurried, laughing without checking who was nearby. For the first time, I saw personal vehicles, two-wheeled, two-seat machines, sleek and fast, nothing like our buses. "How long have you lived here? What do you do here?" I asked. "So many questions," Miller said, grinning. "Not tonight, just feel it." We drank something that burned on the way down and left a warmth I didn't trust. We entered a building, paid chips at the door, and stepped inside. The bar was dimly lit, neon bouncing off silver counters and dark wooden tables. The music was syncopated, horns and brushes weaving riffs that seemed to move between people rather than above them, pulling gestures and laughter into its rhythm. Glasses clinked. Couples swayed. Groups hunched over cards and tokens with sly expressions. The bartender worked with quiet precision, sleeves rolled to cis, the elbow, forearms marked with faint scars and inked numbers. A silent record of something I didn't ask about. His eyes tracked everything without appearing to track anything. I watched a woman laugh at something. Her companion said, a real laugh, unconsidered, belonging only to the moment. I couldn't remember the last time I had seen that. Miller said we had to leave. Late, he said. The morning would come regardless. He offered the hideout floor for the night. We'd return through the tunnels at first light, he said quickly and easily. I didn't sleep for a long time. The music was still running through me, and underneath it something I couldn't name. Not quite unease, not quite joy. Something that hadn't been there before.